The most profound forms of betrayal in a relationship rarely begin with a clandestine meeting or a hidden text message. They start much earlier, quietly, in the language and the emotional atmosphere of your shared life. They employ the subtle but devastating tool of manipulation, often cloaked in the guise of maturity, self awareness, or even intellectual honesty. What you are witnessing in the months before an infidelity is not a genuine relationship crisis you can solve. It is a meticulously crafted emotional exit strategy designed to justify betrayal and create distance. This psychological operation, this slow, deliberate shift in narrative, is the essence of relationship gaslighting, making you doubt your own perception of a problem that they themselves are creating. The cost of believing these excuses, these calculated lies, is staggering. It is the waste of years spent pouring your love, effort, and commitment into a foundation that had already been subtly decommissioned by your partner. The deep scar is the erosion of your self confidence as you internalize the blame they are projecting onto you, agonizing over why you aren't enough or why you can't fix the sudden, inexplicable coldness. You find yourself adrift in a relentless fog of self doubt, trapped in a cycle of trying to negotiate with a problem that is not actually you. It is their choice, their deliberate withdrawal. Your mind is trying to solve for X in an equation where the solution has already been predetermined. You become smaller in your own life, apologizing for feelings that are completely valid, walking on eggshells around someone who has already emotionally checked out but hasn't had the courage or honesty to tell you. The cruelty is not just in the betrayal itself, but in the months or even years of psychological warfare that preceded it, where you were made to feel like the problem while they were busy constructing an elaborate justification for their own actions. Emotional detachment, the true precursor to physical cheating, begins quietly through the words they choose and the way those words shift the responsibility onto you. There are 5 specific narrative strategies or excuses that a partner often deploys as an invisible shield and a psychological rope, tethering herself to the emotional door before she finally walks out. They sound sad, perhaps, or complicated, but they are all carefully engineered to create the necessary emotional distance. And the most insidious part? These excuses are delivered with such apparent sincerity, such manufactured vulnerability, that you feel guilty for even questioning them. The first and one of the most effective because it targets your compassion is the seemingly benign statement, "I'm just not in the mood lately." On the surface, this feels like an acceptable, understandable conversation about libido, stress, or a temporary physical roadblock. And you, being the loving, patient partner, respond by backing off. You may feel a pang of rejection, but you respect her need for space, perhaps thinking you need to try harder to create a more romantic environment, to be less demanding, more attentive to her emotional state. Maybe you buy flowers more often, plan thoughtful date nights, or simply give her the room she seems to need. You tell yourself it's just a phase, that work has been stressful for her, that everyone goes through periods of low desire. You rationalize it because you love her, because you want to be understanding, because you've read articles about how libido naturally fluctuates in long term relationships. But here is the critical psychological shift. For the partner who is preparing to stray, this isn't about a general drop in desire, it's about redirected desire. The spark, the enthusiasm, the emotional and physical energy haven't vanished. They've simply been unconsciously or consciously moved elsewhere, toward a new object of attention that now consumes her mental and emotional bandwidth. This is the energy shift, an unmistakable behavioral pattern. You might notice she's spending significantly more time and effort on her appearance before leaving the house. There's a new, vibrant enthusiasm when she discusses her life and activities outside of you. Yet she is consistently emotionally flat, distant, and unavailable the moment she walks back into your shared space. Her life with you is gray. Her life outside is suddenly in high definition. She laughs at her phone in ways she hasn't laughed with you in months. She hums while getting ready for work. She has a glow and energy, a lightness that somehow evaporates the moment she crosses the threshold of your home. Consider Kevin. When his wife Sarah started using this line, he didn't confront her. He started meticulously researching diet, stress, and even tried to find the right therapist, believing he was the source of her stress or pressure. He blamed himself, agonizing over what he was doing wrong to make her feel pressured or unloved, wondering if he had become less attractive, less interesting, less worthy of her affection. He started working out more, dressing better, trying to rekindle the romance with surprise gestures and heartfelt conversations. But none of it worked because the problem wasn't him. Sarah was quietly preserving her emotional and physical energy, saving it for the connection she was already pursuing or planning to pursue elsewhere. She needs you to believe it's a personal problem, a mysterious, internal, hormonal problem, so you don't look at the relationship problem she is manufacturing by controlling the flow of intimacy. This deliberate starvation of emotional and physical connection then serves as her internal justification. I was forced to look elsewhere because he couldn't meet my needs. Do you see how perfectly circular the logic becomes? She creates the distance. You experience the pain of that distance, and then she uses your experience of that pain as evidence that the relationship was already broken. This manufactured need for independence then naturally transitions into the second narrative device, which is framed as an act of powerful self love. I just need to focus on myself right now. This is the concept of weaponized independence. I want to be very clear. Authentic personal growth is a beautiful, healthy necessity, and a supportive partner should be a powerful force included in that journey, cheering and helping. A healthy relationship doesn't stifle individual development, it enhances it. When someone genuinely needs to focus on personal growth, they invite their partner into that process. They share their goals, their struggles, their victories. They don't disappear behind a wall of vague self improvement rhetoric. But when this excuse is deployed as a prelude to betrayal, it becomes a boundary designed specifically to exclude you. Her sudden self focus requires an inexplicable withdrawal from shared life, shared conversation, shared future planning, and shared intimacy. She requires space, a psychological bubble you're not allowed to penetrate. She's suddenly taking up new hobbies, joining new social circles, staying out later than usual. But when you express interest in these new aspects of her life, you're met with resistance, vague answers, or outright deflection. The emotional hook is this: when you inevitably express your confusion, your hurt, or your completely natural desire for reassurance about your future together, she frames your reaction as you being controlling, needy, or insecure. This is a profound and cruel defense mechanism used to justify her emotional withdrawal. Think about James. His girlfriend Rachel announced one evening that she needed to rediscover herself after years of losing her identity in the relationship. James, feeling guilty that he might have somehow contributed to this, immediately backed off. He stopped asking about her evening yoga classes, her weekend workshops, her new friend group. He gave her the space she claimed she needed, believing he was being supportive. What he didn't realize until months later was that Rachel wasn't rediscovering herself at all. She was discovering someone else. The yoga instructor had a name, a face, and an ongoing emotional affair that would eventually become physical. But by framing it as self-discovery, Rachel had effectively made James complicit in his own betrayal. Any attempt he made to question her, to express his loneliness or confusion, was immediately weaponized against him. "This is exactly why I need space," she would say. "You're suffocating me. You can't handle me growing as a person." She is preparing the emotional exit before the physical betrayal takes place, creating a narrative that says, "I have to leave because he is holding me back from becoming who I'm meant to be, not because I am unfaithful." By labeling your confusion as a fault, she secures a clean internal narrative for herself. She becomes the hero of her own story, bravely breaking free from a restrictive relationship rather than the villain who betrayed someone's trust. And when you, driven by your anxiety and your observation of these shifts, finally raise your concerns, you are met with the third most devastating tool of gaslighting. You're just being insecure. This is a direct attack on your reality. Your intuition is not paranoia. It is a complex, subconscious pattern recognition system that is sounding an alarm because it has picked up on discrepancies, a hidden phone, a story that doesn't quite line up, or a look that lingered too long in a coworker's direction. Maybe you've noticed that she angles her phone away from you now, or that she's suddenly protective of her privacy in ways she never was before. Maybe her stories about work events have small inconsistencies, details that don't quite add up when you piece them together over time. Maybe you've seen the way she lights up when a certain name is mentioned, the way her energy shifts in ways that feel exclusionary to you. She knows she cannot successfully argue against the facts of her shifting, suspicious behavior. So she attacks the source of your concern, your mind. By labeling you insecure, she deftly reframes her guardedness, her secrecy, and her emotional withdrawal as a normal activity that your overreactive mind is blowing out of proportion. She no longer has to defend the action. She only has to invalidate the person questioning it. You are coerced through sheer emotional and psychological force into apologizing for feeling suspicious, thereby accepting the blame for her own guardedness. Consider David. When he mentioned to his partner Lisa that he felt uncomfortable with how much time she was spending texting her friend from the gym, Lisa didn't respond with reassurance or transparency. Instead, she accused David of being jealous and controlling, of having trust issues that he needed to work on. She suggested that his insecurity was a reflection of his own inadequacy, implying that if he were more confident in himself, he wouldn't feel threatened. David, wanting to be a good partner and not wanting to appear possessive, internalized this criticism. He apologized. He promised to work on his trust issues. He even started seeing a therapist to address his unfounded jealousy. All the while, Lisa continued her emotional affair, now with the added psychological ammunition that David had admitted to being insecure. When the affair eventually came to light, Lisa used David's previous expressions of concern as evidence that he had driven her away with his neediness. The gaslighting was so effective that even after the betrayal was revealed, David struggled to trust his own perception of reality. He questioned whether he had somehow manifested the affair through his insecurity, whether his suspicions had been a self-fulfilling prophecy rather than an accurate reading of the situation. This process of self-blame is often swiftly followed by a seemingly philosophical and sadly mature-sounding excuse. I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. This phrase is emotionally brutal because it attempts to soften the blow with a residual acknowledgement of your shared history, the friendship, and the respect, while simultaneously destroying the core foundation of your present romantic relationship. It sounds like an honest, heartbreaking confession, a sad truth about the nature of long-term commitment. It taps into a cultural narrative we've all heard, that passion fades, that the butterflies don't last forever, that love transforms into something more comfortable and less intense over time. But when this narrative is deployed as a precursor to betrayal, it is a statement designed solely to absolve her of responsibility. By declaring the relationship dead at a foundational romantic level, she is attempting to secure a moral high ground for the action she is about to take. She is not cheating, she is merely finding the romantic vital love that the relationship had already lost. The psychological manipulation here is particularly sophisticated because it reframes the natural evolution of long-term love as a deficiency rather than a deepening. The intense infatuation of early romance is meant to transform into something more sustainable, more rooted, more resilient. But by framing this transformation as a loss rather than a progression, she creates a justification for seeking that initial intensity elsewhere. The problem she suggests is not her unwillingness to commit or her attraction to someone new, but rather the relationship's failure to maintain an unsustainable level of passion. Let's think about Michael. When his girlfriend used this line, she did it with tears in her eyes, saying, "You're my best friend, Michael, and I'll always love you, but the spark is gone. I need to find my joy." Michael became her emotional caretaker, consoling her over the death of their love, while she was simultaneously using that statement to shield the new joy she was already cultivating with someone else. He spent weeks trying to understand, reading articles about how to reignite passion, planning elaborate romantic gestures, all while she was checking her phone under the table during their anniversary dinner, texting the person who was giving her that spark she claimed was missing. This kind of language is a devastating sign that the betrayal has already happened in her mind, and she is simply delivering the eulogy before body is even cold, ensuring she gets to play the noble, heartbroken character in her own narrative. She gets to be the sensitive soul who tried, but ultimately had to honor her authentic feelings, rather than the person who chose temporary excitement over committed partnership. What makes this excuse particularly damaging is how it invalidates the depth and value of the love that does exist. The companionship, the shared history, the deep knowing of each other, the comfort and security, all of these are dismissed as insufficient, as second rate substitutes for real love. It suggests that if you're not constantly feeling the adrenaline rush of new romance, then something is fundamentally wrong. This sets up an impossible standard, one that no long term relationship can meet, and it provides a convenient escape hatch for someone who wants to chase novelty without acknowledging that they're simply choosing the easy dopamine hit over the harder work of sustained intimacy. Finally, the manipulative line that serves as the immediate last step before the physical betrayal is the urgent, non negotiable demand: I just need some space. This is different from the slower, more systemic withdrawal of focusing on self. This is an abrupt, often highly dramatic demand for immediate physical and emotional distance. The psychological goal is simple. She needs to create a significant, believable, and justifiable gap in your relationship story so that the impending betrayal can occur without your immediate knowledge, or, more critically, without your immediate right to question it. If you are separated and she is getting her space, a weekend getaway, a late night out, or even an overt romantic relationship with another person is now framed as an independent act, not a secret one. The accompanying behavioral cue is the utter lack of compromise, discussion, or genuine explanation surrounding the request. It is a demand, not a dialogue. There's no invitation to work through whatever issue might be causing the need for distance. There's no timeline, no clear boundary, no mutual understanding of what space means or how you'll reconnect afterward. It's presented as an emergency exit that must be taken immediately, and any attempt to discuss it rationally is met with increased urgency and often anger. I just need you to respect this, she might say, as if your very reasonable questions about the relationship's future are themselves a violation. Think about Tom. His wife Jennifer came home one day and announced that she needed to stay with her sister for a while, that she felt suffocated and needed to clear her head. When Tom asked how long, what had triggered this, whether they could talk about it, Jennifer became defensive and accusatory. "This is exactly the problem," she said. "You can't even give me space without making it about you." Tom, confused and hurt, let her go, believing that pushing the issue would only drive her further away. What he didn't know was that Jennifer's sister was covering for her, that the space was actually a week-long trip with a coworker Jennifer had been emotionally involved with for months. By the time Tom discovered the truth, Jennifer had already constructed a narrative in which his clinginess and inability to give her space had justified her actions. The space wasn't for reflection or healing, it was for betrayal. It was the final brick in the emotional wall she had been building. And once that wall was up, she was free to move on without having to witness or manage your pain. As a psychologist, let me offer you this profound and necessary validation. You cannot argue someone back into honesty. You cannot use logic, reason, or kindness to solve a problem that is, at its core, one person's deliberate act of manipulation. You can debate for weeks. You can offer to change every aspect of your life, but you will never find the truth in their chosen words. The truth is found, instead, in the patterns of their actions. Does her rhetoric align with her observable behavior? Does her explanation for the distance feel intellectually and emotionally coherent? Or does it leave you in a constant state of agonizing cognitive dissonance, trying to reconcile the loving partner you think you know with the cold, guarded stranger who now stands before you? Your relationship should not feel like a constant, weary defense of your own feelings. You should not be perpetually apologizing for having needs, for noticing inconsistencies, for feeling confused by someone's sudden transformation. A healthy relationship, even one going through genuine difficulty, still maintains a foundation of mutual respect and honest communication. Both partners can acknowledge problems without resorting to psychological warfare. Both partners can express needs for growth or space without making the other person feel crazy for having concerns. Stop negotiating with cognitive dissonance. Stop apologizing for your own instincts. When these subtle, manipulative excuses start to appear, the redirected desire, the weaponized independence, the gaslighting of your insecurity, the philosophical declaration of love's death, and the urgent demand for space, it is time to stop looking for your own fault and start observing the pattern. Trust what you see more than what you hear. Your anxiety isn't a flaw, it's a compass. It's your psychological immune system recognizing a threat and trying to protect you. When someone truly loves you and is committed to the relationship, they don't make you feel insane for noticing changes in their behavior. They don't punish you for having feelings. They don't construct elaborate verbal frameworks designed to make you doubt your own reality. Confusion isn't love, it's your instinct warning you something is off.